My name's Danielle Mercer. I was 15 when my mom smiled and told me to get out. Not screamed. Not cried. Smiled like she was proud of herself for finally saying it. She set a pillow by the front door, stuffed a plastic grocery bag with my clothes, and said, "You'll be back." Begging, mark my words. That was my birthday present. Ever been thrown out like trash, but asked to feel grateful for it? Drop a comment if you've ever felt erased by the people who were supposed to love you. Because what happened next wasn't loud. No slammed doors. No broken plates. Just silence. And the sound of me walking away from the only home I'd ever known. With a pillow, a plastic bag, and a truth I wasn't ready to face. Let me take you back to the moment that smile broke something in me for good. The kitchen smelled like reheated green beans and too much silence. We sat around the table like mannequins, each pretending not to feel how tight the air had gotten. The overhead light buzzed. My father stirred his iced tea like he was searching for answers in the ice. My mom sat tall at the head of the table, hands folded, lips pressed into that brittle smile she wore at church. My sister Becca tapped her acrylic nails against her phone, pretending to be anywhere but here. It was my birthday. No cake. No candles. Just a roast chicken sweating on a chipped platter and paper napkins folded too perfectly. I cut my chicken too carefully, too quietly, like maybe if I didn't make a sound, they'd forget whatever was about to happen. My stomach was already churning. Something felt practiced. That's when my mother exhaled like she was starting a speech. "You've made your choices, Danielle," she said. Her voice was calm, too calm. The kind of calm people mistake for kindness. Now it's time to live with them. I set my fork down slowly. "What does that mean?" Her smile didn't move. "You think we're going to let you stay here while you disrespect everything we raised you to be?" I glanced at my dad, searching his face for anything confusion, discomfort, even a flicker of doubt. Nothing. Just his hand resting heavy on his glass. Becca shifted and murmured something about the bathroom before walking out. "Coward. You don't go to youth group anymore," Mom continued. "Your grades are slipping. You clearly don't care about college. You're headed down a path we cannot bless." The words sounded rehearsed, memorized, even. She stood from the table, smoothing her cardigan, and walked toward the front door. That's when I saw it. A pillow. One of the old ones from the guest room. And a plastic grocery bag. My clothes stuffed in without folding. I recognized the orange hoodie I wore when I mowed the lawn. It was half hanging out the top. "You can go now," she said, turning back to face me. "Or we can call Pastor Roland to come pick you up." I didn't move. The room was spinning, but I was rooted. Not from strength, from shock. The kind of shock where sound drops out, and all you can hear is your own heartbeat in your ears. I looked at my dad again. Still nothing. He didn't blink. Didn't flinch. They'd talked about this. Planned it. Probably prayed about it. And now, they were following through. My hands trembled. I wasn't even wearing shoes. Just socks. There was mud on the heels from the backyard. "Please don't do this," I said, but it came out too soft, like I wasn't even sure I meant it. Her eyes narrowed, not in anger. In disappointment. "You'll be back," she said. Her voice dipped into something smug. Begging. Mark my words. Then came the smile. It wasn't warm. It wasn't motherly. It was satisfied. Like she'd finally done the hard thing and wanted to be congratulated for it. I stood. My chair scraped the tile. The sound felt too loud in that hushed room. No one stopped me. No one said my name. I walked to the door, picked up the pillow and the bag. The plastic crackled. The bag's handle was already starting to stretch and tear. I turned around once, just to see. My mom was already clearing plates. My dad was sipping his tea. Becca's seat was still empty. It wasn't rage that hit me. It was smallness. Like I had never mattered, and now the paperwork just caught up to it. I opened the door. The spring air hit my face like a slap. It wasn't even cold, but I shivered anyway. There wasn't a single star in the sky. Just that yellow porch light casting shadows on the lawn. I stepped outside. No one called after me. No footsteps. No slammed doors. Just the sound of the screen door creaking shut behind me. I started walking. The pillow under one arm, the plastic bag swinging awkwardly from my wrist. I didn't know where I was going. Maybe I hoped Becca would run out, apologize, say this was a mistake. Maybe I wanted my dad to change his mind, step onto the porch and whisper, "Come back." I didn't mean it. But I knew better. I'd always known better. Halfway down the street, I paused under a street lamp. There was a moth circling the bulb, desperate for light it could never hold. I stared at it longer than I should have. Then I kept walking. My phone buzzed in my back pocket. I grabbed it, hoping stupidly that someone had noticed. A text. A call. A change of heart. Battery low. 1 bar left. I tapped in a name, Michelle. My closest friend. The only one who might believe me. Straight to voicemail. I texted her one word, help. No reply. I slipped the phone back in my pocket and pulled my hoodie tighter. The pillow was getting heavier. Or maybe I was just getting tired. I passed 3 houses with porch lights on. A dog barked behind a fence. Nobody saw me. Or maybe they did. And they looked away. I didn't sleep much that first night. The pillow barely cushioned the floor, and the gym mats smelled like sweat and old rubber. Every noise, every distant door slam or humming light felt like someone was about to find me and ask what I was doing there. But no one came. The next morning, I crept out of the storage closet before the janitor unlocked the gym. I washed up in the locker room sink, brushed my teeth with my finger and some soap, then stuffed my hoodie sleeves down to hide how bad I was shaking. I ate half a bag of stale Cheez-Its I'd found in the bottom of my backpack and told myself it was enough. That was how the days started to go. School was the only place I could disappear. As long as I turned in assignments and kept my head down, no one asked questions. I laughed when I was supposed to. Took notes when teachers called on me. Ate lunch in the back corner of the cafeteria with my hood up, pretending I liked being alone. I kept telling myself it was temporary. That someone, Michelle, a teacher, even Becca would reach out. Ask if I was okay. Tell me it had all been a mistake. But silence has a way of becoming familiar. It wraps around you like a blanket that doesn't keep you warm but convinces you no one else is coming. By the end of the week, I'd memorized the routine. Wait until the gym cleared out. Slide through the loose panel on the far side. Wedge myself behind the stack of mats. Sleep as still as I could. Wake up before anyone noticed. One night it rained, and the tin roof of the gym clanged all night. I pulled my pillow over my ears and thought about how my mom used to make hot chocolate when it stormed. She'd hum hymns and act like we were in a Hallmark movie. But that was always just for guests. Behind closed doors, warmth had rules. The next morning, I stood in the hallway, waiting for first period. My legs ached from sleeping on the floor. My stomach twisted from the inside out. I leaned against my locker, trying not to wobble. Then something strange happened. The history teacher was out sick, so we had us middle-aged, wire-rimmed glasses, cardigan buttoned all the way up. As we filed out of class, she placed a hand on my shoulder. Just for a second. She smiled, not pitying or awkward, just quiet. Present. She didn't say anything. But it was the first time someone looked at me like I wasn't vanishing. I didn't think too much of it. Maybe she was just one of those nice substitute teachers who tried a little too hard. But later that day, when I opened my locker, there was a granola bar tucked between my books. And a sticky note. Neat handwriting. Not a teacher's scrawl, not a kid's loop. Just 7 words. You're not invisible. I see you. I froze. Literally froze. My fingers hovered in the air like they'd touched something sacred. The hallway buzzed around me, footsteps, lockers slamming, someone laughing too loud. But I didn't hear any of it. I just stared at that note like it was written in gold. I hadn't realized how badly I needed someone to notice. Not out of charity. Not out of guilt. Just to see me. I didn't cry. Not then. I wasn't sure if I could anymore. But I folded the note carefully and slipped it into my back pocket. I carried it with me for the rest of the day. Kept checking to make sure it hadn't disappeared. Like maybe it was a trick my brain had played to get me through one more day. That night, back in the storage room, I reread it until the edges curled. "You're not invisible. I see you." I whispered the words out loud once, just to see how they sounded in my voice. They felt strange, but not bad. For the first time all week, I slept a little longer. The next morning, I was brushing my teeth with a stolen packet of sugar when I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. My hoodie was rumpled, my cheeks hollow. I looked like a ghost wearing someone else's clothes. But there was a flicker in my eyes I hadn't seen since before. It wasn't hope, not yet. But it was something close to stubbornness. I tucked my pillow tighter under my arm, wiped my face dry with the sleeve, and told myself, one more day. Just get through one more. I could figure out the rest later. I didn't know it yet, but that sticky note was the first breadcrumb. A quiet nudge toward something better. Toward someone who might actually care whether I made it or not. I just had to keep following it long enough to find out. I first saw the flyer in the bathroom stall. It was taped above the toilet paper dispenser, right where you couldn't miss it if you sat down. Bright yellow paper with bold black letters. Youth Mentorship Night free meals, free guidance, Thursdays, 6 p.m., church basement on Cedar. I remember staring at it longer than necessary, pretending to read it twice, like the words might rearrange themselves if I blinked too long. I didn't trust things that offered too much for free. The last time someone said they wanted what was best for me, they handed me a pillow and a grocery bag and told me to figure it out. Still, I wrote the time and address on the corner of my notebook. Just in case. The church didn't look like much. Plain brick. Cracked parking lot. A flickering sign out front that said, "You are loved" in half-lit red letters. I waited until the last possible minute to walk in. The basement smelled like coffee and folding chairs. There were maybe 10 of us kids with backpacks, bruised sneakers, hoodies with stretched-out cuffs. Everyone looked like they wanted to be invisible. A woman stood at the front with a clipboard in one hand and a denim jacket draped over her shoulders. She wasn't loud. She didn't clap or try to hype anyone up. She just scanned the room, made eye contact with every person, and nodded once. Like she saw us. All of us. And didn't need to explain why we were there. Her name was Tasha Morales. She introduced herself without listing credentials or personal stories. No dramatic when I was your age speech. Just, "I'm not here to fix you. I'm here if you want help figuring things out." Then she handed out a single piece of paper. One question printed at the top in thick black letters. "What's one thing you'd want to learn if no one could stop you?" I stared at the paper for a long time. Long enough that my fingers smudged the corner. Everyone else scribbled something quickly. One kid near me wrote, "How to drive." Another, "How to disappear." I didn't know what to put. Everything felt too big or too small. I wasn't trying to dream. I was just trying to get through the week without sleeping behind a stack of gym mats. But my hand moved anyway. I wrote, "Wiring." Not for any deep reason. Just because I liked the way lights worked. The quiet logic of it. You flip a switch. Something responds. Simply. Honest. After we turned in the worksheets, Tasha didn't ask questions. She didn't even read them in front of us. She just smiled and said, "You did something hard tonight. You showed up." And that was it. No group therapy. No sad circle introductions. Just quiet chairs, warm spaghetti on paper plates, and a woman who knew better than to pry too early. I stayed behind to help stack the chairs. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to prove I wasn't just another lost kid waiting for handouts. Or maybe I just didn't want to walk back into the cold yet. As I folded the last chair, Tasha looked over and said, "You ever think about applying to a program after high school?" I almost laughed. "Doesn't matter," I said. "I don't have a home address, or paperwork, or any of it." She didn't flinch. "There's a scholarship program for kids like you," she said. "No address needed, just proof you're trying." I stared at her. She didn't ask what I meant. She didn't ask where I was living. I think she already knew. And she didn't make it weird. On the way out, I paused by a bulletin board near the door. There were pictures pinned all over it, Polaroids, printouts, faded color copies. Teenagers standing in graduation gowns, holding toolboxes, smiling beside certificates. One kid wore a hard hat too big for his head. The corkboard was worn at the edges. But it was full. Tasha caught me looking. Those are the ones who came back, she said. Not because they had to. Because they wanted someone to know they made it. I'll list. I nodded, not really knowing what to say. She didn't push it. See you next week, Danielle. It stopped me in my tracks. I hadn't told her my name. That night, back in the storage closet, I reread the sticky note one more time. You're not invisible. I see you. I tucked it between the pages of my notebook, just behind the worksheet I'd folded in half. I still didn't know what I was doing. Still didn't trust that showing up again would make anything better. But I'd written something on that page. And for now, that was enough. Sometimes you don't need a miracle. Just a room that doesn't ask too many questions. And a woman in a denim jacket who doesn't flinch when you say the word nowhere. 2 weeks after I wrote wiring on that worksheet, I got a letter. Folded tight, stuffed into a plain envelope with my name scribbled across the front. Inside was a congratulations notice. I'd been selected for a spring mentorship scholarship hands-on training with local electricians, plus a paid summer slot if I finished school on time. I read it 3 times before I let myself believe it was real. It wasn't much. But it was mine. I didn't show it to anyone. Not yet. I just folded it carefully and slid it between the pages of my notebook, right behind the sticky note and that first worksheet. Some things you protect like they're breakable. Because deep down, you know someone's gonna try and take them from you. It happened on a Tuesday. I was sitting in the back of the computer lab, half listening to a lecture, when a classmate nudged me. Hey, she whispered, tilting her phone screen my way. Your sister's, like, famous now. I blinked. What? She's on the church Facebook page, she said, scrolling. Something about mentoring local girls and getting a scholarship for service. My stomach twisted before I even looked. There it was. A photo of Becca in a blazer that didn't fit right, standing next to Pastor Roland. The caption read, "Congratulations to Rebecca Mercer for receiving the Community Star Scholarship honoring her mentorship and youth leadership in the faith community." Underneath, comments poured in. So proud of you, Becca. A role model for young women. God has big plans for this one. I sat frozen, mouth dry, palms sweating. My ears rang. It wasn't just that she was lying. It was that they believed her. Becca didn't attend a single Thursday night in that church basement. She'd never seen Tasha's denim jacket. She didn't even know what was on that worksheet. But there she was, holding my win like it had always been hers. After school, I biked straight to her apartment. Not home. Just hers. She opened the door like nothing was weird, hair in loose curls, holding a mason jar smoothie like she was filming a tutorial. I didn't even say hi. What are you doing? I asked. My voice cracked halfway through. She blinked, then gave me that soft, plastic smile she saved for people she didn't respect. Oh, that. She waved it off like I'd asked about the weather. The scholarship needed a name to attach for the church. Pastor said it'd be cleaner that way. Cleaner? I nearly laughed. It's not yours, Becca. She looked past me, like the conversation bored her. You weren't using it. That hit harder than I expected. I earned it, I snapped. That was my application. My hours. My work. She set her smoothie down like I was making a scene. Danielle, nobody even knew you were part of the program until I posted it. You should be thanking me. And Trill. My fists clenched at my sides. You don't even believe in what they do down there. Becca sighed. You're so dramatic. Look, if they wanted to recognize you, they would've. You're not exactly the face they're going for. She didn't say it outright. But I heard the subtext loud and clear. She meant I didn't look clean enough, didn't speak sweetly enough, didn't fit into the church photo album. I turned around and walked out before I could say something I'd regret. Actually, no. I would have meant every word. That night, I scrolled through the post again, just to make sure I hadn't imagined it. The likes had doubled. Becca had even added a new caption. Grateful for the chance to pour into the next generation. We rise when we lift others. I nearly threw my phone across the room. Instead, I took a screenshot. Not because I needed proof, but because part of me knew this wasn't the last time she'd try to stand in my light. The corkboard photos in Tasha's basement never made it to Facebook. The real stories didn't. The next morning, I walked into school and someone in the hallway gave me a high five. Yo, saw your sis got that scholarship. That's dope. You two do that stuff together? I smiled tight, swallowed hard, and nodded once. Then I went straight to the girls' bathroom and sat in the far stall until the bell rang. I wasn't sad. I was something worse. Erased. Turns out, when people don't want your story, they don't just ignore it, they steal it, dress it up, smile for the camera, and convince the world it was always theirs to begin with. But I wasn't done yet. It started with a letter I wasn't supposed to receive. I'd been using the church basement address for anything official. Tasha said it was safer than bouncing between friends' couches. The letter came in a plain envelope, no return address. Just my name, typed, like I was an adult with a mailbox and a credit score. Inside was a late notice. A student loan statement from a place I'd never heard of. Balance due. $4,720.78. I stared at it like it might rewrite itself. Name, Danielle Mercer. Social security number. Correct. Application date, 4 months after I was kicked out. I hadn't applied for anything. I didn't even have access to my birth certificate, but someone had, and they used my name to do it. At first, I thought it was a mistake. I brought the letter to Tasha after Thursday night group and laid it flat on the table like it was evidence in a trial. She scanned it once, her expression unreadable. You didn't apply for this? She asked gently. I shook my head. I've never even heard of this school. Tasha nodded slowly. We'll pull your credit, see what else is there. That sentence alone made me feel 30 years older. 2 days later, I sat across from her with a printout in my lap. 3 student loan accounts. 1 private credit card. 1 utilities bill tied to a trailer address I hadn't seen since I was 9. All opened in my name. All active. All behind. I thought I knew what betrayal felt like. I thought getting kicked out on my birthday was the worst thing they could do to me. I was wrong. This wasn't just rejection. This was theft. My first instinct was to scream. My second was to cry. But I didn't do either. Instead, I stared at the paperwork and went quiet in that way you do when your body knows it's under attack but your brain hasn't caught up yet. Tasha didn't push me to talk. She just let me sit there, the hum of the fluorescent light buzzing above us like a warning. After a while, I asked, "Can I see the applications?" She pulled them up on the screen. Loan paperwork, e-signatures. And there it was. My name in cursive at the bottom of every page. Except, it wasn't my handwriting. Not even close. I used to sign all my permission slips with a half-print squiggle. These were full loops, grown-up letters. The kind my mom used when she signed church checks. I looked closer. The same slant. The same capital D with a little heart over the I. She used to do that on notes she left in my lunchbox back when I was still small enough to believe they meant something. That night, I lay awake in the gym storage closet, the letter clutched to my chest. The plastic bag I'd walked out with was still tucked under my makeshift mattress. It had split along the side from too many nights of shifting, but I hadn't thrown it out. It reminded me. Not of them. Of me. Of what I'd carried alone. The next day at school, I went to the front office and asked for a copy of my student record. The secretary blinked at me. We already gave those to your parents. I smiled tight. I need my own. She hesitated. We need a parent signature or some kind of release. I pulled the loan notice from my backpack and slid it across the desk. They signed this. Using my name. I figure I'm old enough to see what else they've been signing. She stared at it for a second too long, then left the room. 10 minutes later, she returned with a manila envelope. Inside, my full school file. Attendance. Grades. Emergency contact form signed, again, by me. Except not me. I took the red pen from her desk and circled the signature. Then I wrote underneath it, "Not my signature," and signed my real name beside it. That was the moment something shifted in me. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was documenting. Tasha helped me file a fraud report. It would take time, she said. Maybe years. Maybe it wouldn't go anywhere. But at least it would be in writing. At least they wouldn't get to own the silence. Before I left that day, she handed me a folder with my name on it written in her handwriting. Just block letters, plain and neat. Inside were every document, every copy, every screenshot we'd gathered. Keep this, she said. Even if no one listens now. One day, someone will. I nodded, tucking it into my backpack like a weapon. Because that's what it felt like now. I wasn't the daughter they cast out anymore. I was the girl they thought they could erase. But forgot to keep quiet. They bought a future using my name. But they forgot I'd grow up and want it back. I didn't expect the invitation. It came folded inside a plain envelope, no return address, just my name spelled correctly for once. Inside was a flyer. Community Youth Recognition Ceremony honoring excellence in vocational achievement. Below it, a printed note. We look forward to celebrating your accomplishments. For a second, I thought it was a mistake. Then I reread it. Again. I'd filled out the paperwork months ago with Tasha's help. Listed the hours I'd put in. The apprenticeship modules I'd completed. They'd called it a competitive cohort. I didn't think I had a shot. But there it was. My name. On something that wasn't a warning or a bill. I didn't tell anyone. Not Tasha. Not even the girl I shared lunch duty with after mentorship group. I just circled the date in my notebook and promised myself I'd sit in the back and clap when they called my name. The ceremony was held in the high school gym. The same gym I'd slept in, weeks before, curled behind a stack of mats. Now it was filled with folding chairs and fake ferns. A podium draped in burgundy cloth. Somebody's mom was playing Pomp and Circumstance on a Yamaha keyboard near the bleachers. I'd found a dress at a thrift store. Ironed it twice the night before in the church basement's kitchen with an old iron that smelled like burnt dust. It didn't fit quite right in the shoulders, but it was the nicest thing I'd worn in months. I walked in 5 minutes early, found the section with my program's name on it. There were laminated name tags on every seat. I scanned the row. Then again. There was no tag for me. A woman in a volunteer vest approached. She had a clipboard and that kind of smile that says, "We're just doing our best." "Can I help you, sweetheart?" she asked. "Danielle Mercer," I said. I was invited. She flipped through her sheet, frowned slightly, then looked up. "Oh, right. Well, we didn't receive a confirmation from your guardian, so unfortunately we couldn't finalize your award slot." He blinked. "My what?" "Your legal guardian," she said, already halfway turned toward another student. "We needed a signature to officially process your slot on stage. Liability and photo permissions, you know." I stood there holding the folded flyer in my hand. The same one that said they were looking forward to celebrating me. I didn't say anything. Didn't trust what would come out if I opened my mouth. I found a seat in the bleachers. 3rd row from the back. Behind a group of parents holding iPads and toddlers with sticky fingers. The ceremony started. Names echoed over the microphone, each one followed by applause and flashes of phone cameras. I watched 3 kids from my program walk across the stage. One tripped and everyone laughed softly. Another gave a speech that made the principal tear up. I clapped for every one of them. But I didn't smile. Halfway through, someone I didn't know sat next to me. He looked about my age. Hair buzzed short. Dress shirt too big. No family with him either. Did they skip you too? He asked under his breath. I nodded. They told me they never got my GED paperwork, he said. But I mailed it twice. We sat there in silence for the next 15 minutes. When it was over, we didn't stand for the group photo. We just watched from the bleachers as everyone smiled like we were all one big success story. Back in the church basement, I peeled off the name tag I'd made for myself and tossed it in the trash. Handwritten. Black Sharpie. Donnie Mercer. It curled at the edges from the heat of my palm. I should have been used to this by now. You earn something. You hope. You show up clean and dressed and on time. And they smile at you like you're a glitch in the system. Later that week, Tasha handed me a letter. Found in the pile of mail she hadn't sorted yet. Yellow envelope, my name written in pen. Slanted handwriting I hadn't seen since I was little. It was from my grandmother. Inside, 2 pages written in blue ink. Careful cursive, the kind that people learned when letters still mattered. She wrote about how proud she was of me. How sorry she was that things turned out the way they did. How she didn't agree with what my parents had done but hadn't known how to stop it. And then, near the end, one line. Your mother didn't push you away because she thought you'd fail, Danny. She pushed you away because she saw you wouldn't. I read that line 5 times. Then I folded the letter, slid it behind the worksheet in my notebook, and sat with it in my hands for a long time. Turns out, there are 2 kinds of people who rewrite your story: those who do it to erase you, and those who do it to remind you that you were never invisible in the first place. And both leave a mark. I wasn't even planning to go. Tasha handed me the flyer after group, said some of the community partners were hosting a youth panel, and asked if I wanted to come support. I nodded without thinking. I figured I'd sit in the back, clap politely, then head home before the room got awkward. But then I saw the panel list. Printed in bold at the bottom. Rebecca Mercer. Community Youth Advocate. My heart dropped so hard I felt dizzy. I checked the name 3 times, hoping maybe it was another Mercer. Maybe someone else with a name like hers. But no, I recognized the photo. She used my story to get the church's scholarship. Used it again to post filtered videos about overcoming the odds. And now, apparently, she was the face of youth resilience. I wanted to tear the flyer in half. Instead, I folded it once. Then once more. And then I showed up. The community hall was decorated with posters that read things like local voices, big futures, and power through perseverance. Round tables, pictures of lemonade, name tags printed in careful fonts. I found a seat in the last row. The chairs were metal and wobbled if you leaned too far back. The woman beside me wore a sparkly cardigan and kept muttering comments like she was live streaming to herself. They brought the panelists up one by one. Most of them were fine, nervous, sweet, trying their best. One girl talked about getting her GED while working nights at the dollar store. A guy with a stutter talked about repairing HVAC units and wanting to open his own shop. And then Becca stepped up. She wore soft curls, a powder blue blouse, and that wide, practiced smile she always saved for Facebook videos. The moderator introduced her as a mentor and community builder who'd worked closely with young women facing housing insecurity. I sat forward in my seat. She began with a soft laugh. It's funny, she said, how people assume you had it easy because you look put together now. The audience nodded. She took a breath, like it was hard to say. There was a time I had nowhere to go. I didn't even have a bed, just a pillow and a plastic bag with some clothes. I stopped breathing. She was telling my story. Word for word. I remember sleeping in a school building, she continued, her voice catching like she'd rehearsed the break. But what saved me was showing up. To a mentorship meeting, I wrote wiring on a worksheet and everything changed. My hand curled into a fist in my lap. She even took the part about the worksheet. And the worst part? They were eating it up. Someone a few rows ahead pulled out their phone and started live tweeting. I caught a glimpse of the screen. This girl's speech is going viral the second I post it. She's got the tears. She's got the trauma. She's got the lighting. I felt sick. Becca was stealing my life in real time. Not just for a Facebook caption or church event, but on a literal stage. I glanced around. The people in that room weren't bad. They just didn't know. Because if you say it right and dress it up just enough, people will clap for a lie before they ever question it. Becca wrapped up with a soft smile and a nod toward the audience. We rise when we lift others, she said. That's the message I want to leave with. Applause erupted. A few people wiped tears. And I sat there, stone still. I didn't yell. I didn't stand. But I pulled out my phone, opened my notes app, and started typing every line she just said that came from me. After the event, I didn't go up to her. I didn't need to. Instead, I walked past the refreshments table, out the side door, and sat on the curb. The streetlight buzzed overhead. I could still hear people laughing inside. And then my phone buzzed. A friend from group had seen the live stream link and texted. Wait. Isn't that your story? I stared at the screen, thumb hovering. Then I took a screenshot. And sent back. Yeah, it is. Later that night, the clip started spreading. People were reposting the speech with captions like, "So brave." But in the comments, questions started popping up. Didn't someone else in that program write about the exact same thing? Kinda weird how the speech feels rehearsed. Anyone got the original? I didn't say anything. Didn't add fuel. But I saved every comment. And every post. Because I knew this time, she'd gone too far. There's a difference between telling your story and stealing someone else's. And the truth? It doesn't stay quiet forever. I didn't want to speak. When the invitation came, I almost threw it away. It was printed on thick ivory paper, with gold trim and that kind of formal font that makes you feel like you need permission to open it. The envelope was sealed with an actual sticker, a small gold star, like the kind teachers give out in kindergarten. You're invited to share your journey at the Rising Voices Gala, a celebration of community growth and resilience. End of chapter. I held it in my hands for 10 full minutes before I said anything. Tasha watched me from across the church basement, elbows on the table. You don't have to, she said. But I think you should. I shook my head. They'll be there. She didn't ask who I meant. She knew. Becca had been quiet since the panel. No texts, no public clapbacks. Just soft edits to her bio and a sudden lack of motivational posts. Which, somehow, was worse. But Tasha just nodded once and said, "Then say it like they're not." The gala was held in the renovated Civic Center, the one with the marble tile floors and the cheap catered chicken that somehow made everyone feel fancy. The theme was Legacy Through Resilience. I borrowed a dress from one of the older girls in the mentorship program. Navy blue, long sleeves, with a satin sash that didn't quite sit right on my waist. But it was clean. And it zipped. So I wore it. They pinned a name tag to my chest. Danielle Mercer, apprenticeship scholar. It felt heavy. But not in a bad way. More like something earned. I was scheduled to speak third. Not last. Not first. Right in the soft middle of the program where people were still paying attention but too polite to leave. I stood backstage, hands clammy, watching the woman before me read a poem about addiction and healing. She finished with a line about God finding her under the porch with a bottle in her hand. People clapped like it was a sermon. And then it was my turn. As I walked toward the podium, I caught a glimpse of them. Row 5. Center aisle. Becca in a pale pink blazer, like she was attending a graduation. My mom in dark green, hair pinned, pearls around her neck like it was Easter Sunday. My stomach tightened. They weren't invited. But of course they came. I almost stopped walking. Almost. Instead, I took a breath, placed both hands on the sides of the podium, and looked straight past them. I used to think being invisible was the worst thing someone could do to you, I began. My voice came out steadier than I expected. But I learned that worse than being invisible is being rewritten. There was a murmur in the crowd. Not loud, just the shift of attention. I spent a long time hiding. Behind mats in a gym storage closet, behind fake smiles, behind silence. Because I thought if I stayed quiet long enough, maybe someone would come looking. I glanced at Becca. She didn't blink. Just stared, hands folded in her lap like she was watching television. My name is Danielle Mercer. And I'm not here to perform pain for applause. I'm here because I built something. I wired it with my own hands. Studied for it in borrowed clothes. Applied for it with a name that was already being used by someone else. A few heads turned toward Becca. She shifted slightly, crossing her legs the other way. I didn't let myself stop. This isn't about revenge, it's about return. About naming what's yours before someone else does. The room was still. I paused. Let the silence do what silence sometimes does best, hold weight. Thank you. I finished, stepping back from the mic. Applause started slow. Then it spread. But I didn't look at my mother. Or Becca. Or the woman wiping tears near the back row. I just walked off stage. Backstage, someone handed me a glass of water. I sipped it without tasting it. Then I heard raised voices near the check-in table. She didn't tell the full story, my mother said, sharp but quiet. There's more to it than that. I'm sorry, ma'am. The staffer replied calmly. Tonight's spotlight is for the scheduled speakers only. But we're her family. And this was her platform. The words landed like a soft thud in my chest. Her platform. For the first time, it really was. Later that night, I stood outside in the parking lot, dress hem brushing against the wind, watching the guests trickle out in heels and cologne. Tasha walked up beside me, hands in her coat pockets. You did it, she said. I didn't burn, I whispered. No, she said. You lit the room. They showed up expecting the same old silence, but this time the mic belonged to me. And I wasn't handing it back. The first thing I bought for the house was a welcome mat. Not because I wanted company, but because I liked the irony. It was plain gray with black script that read, "Home, finally." I placed it in front of the chipped blue door, just beneath the porch light I'd rewired myself. I stood there for a second, breathing in the moment like oxygen. This wasn't a rental, it wasn't borrowed space. It was mine. After years of couch hopping, school storage rooms, and church basements, I had keys. A deed. My name on paper that no one forged. I didn't cry. I just stood there and turned the knob with both hands. Because I needed to feel it. It was a fixer-upper cracked tile in the kitchen, stains on the baseboards, a smell of must and drywall dust. But I'd take chip tile over chip dignity any day. I was 3 weeks into patching, painting, and sleeping on an air mattress when the knock came. 3 polite taps. Not loud, but practiced. I looked through the peephole and froze. It was my mother. Standing on my porch, with my father behind her, holding a casserole dish. I didn't open the door right away. I stared at them for almost a full minute, like they might disappear if I waited long enough. They didn't. When I finally cracked the door open, I said nothing. My mom smiled like she was early for a brunch reservation. We just wanted to see how our girl was doing. Our girl. That's what she said. Like we hadn't lived in different galaxies for almost a decade. My dad nodded. Thought we'd drop by with dinner. Housewarming and all. I stared at the casserole. It was wrapped in foil. Still warm. The smell hit me: tuna and canned soup. The same thing they used to make when bills were late. When we were supposed to feel grateful just for having food. I didn't move. My mother looked past me into the hallway. You've done a lot in here. Looks nice. Bet it took some help to get this far, huh? There it was. The real reason they'd come. I stepped out and closed the door behind me. Just enough to block the view. My voice stayed calm. No one helped. Not you. Not him. Not a dime. She laughed softly, like I'd said something cute. Danielle, come on. We raised you. That work ethic didn't come from nowhere. I raised me, I said. After you put me out. My father shifted his weight, looked down at the dish in his hands. We were strict, he said. That doesn't mean we weren't family. I looked at the keys in my hand. Then back at them. Strict is grounding someone for bad grades. Kicking your kid out at 15 and opening debt in her name? That's not family. That's fraud. My mother's face tightened. I see. So now you think you're better than us? No, I said. Just not owned by you anymore. She stepped forward. One hand reached for the door like she still had the right. Danielle, we came to make peace. No, you came because I have something now. My voice cracked slightly. I hated that. But I didn't back down. You saw my name in the paper when the housing program published that electrician feature. You saw me win something, and you decided it belonged to you. She said nothing. So I did. You don't get to stake a claim just because you regret what it cost to get here. The silence sat between us like wet cement. My father held out the casserole. I didn't take it. Instead, I pointed to the porch steps. You can leave that there. My mom scoffed. You're still ungrateful. No, I said. I'm just done pretending your presence is a gift. She took a breath, sharp and cold. Then turned without another word. My father placed the casserole down on the step like it was some kind of offering. Then followed her to the car. I stood there for a while, watching the taillights disappear down the road. The dish sat cooling on the porch. I didn't touch it. Instead, I picked it up with 2 hands, walked it to the trash bin beside the driveway, and dropped it in without opening the foil. Inside, the light from the kitchen was soft and golden. I closed the door behind me, slowly. Let the click echo. Then I turned the deadbolt. Not out of fear, but closure. They shut a door on me when I was 15. I just returned the favor. Only difference Wasman had a lock. And a title in my name. It came on a Tuesday. A plain white envelope tucked between a utility bill and a grocery coupon flyer. No logo. Just my name. Block letters. Slightly off-center. Inside was a collections notice. Red stamp. Overdue balance, 9,317.49. Creditor. Pinebridge Technical Institute, a school I never attended, for a program I never applied to. I stood in my kitchen staring at the letter, toast still in the toaster, my work boots unlaced on the tile. It wasn't the first one I'd seen. But it was the first to say this. Delinquency may affect license renewal eligibility. My electrician's license. My work. My income. My name. That was the part that made my hands shake. I sat down at the table and pulled out the manila folder Tasha helped me build years ago. Inside, every form, every fraud report, every signature they forged in my name. All documented. But still, the weight came anyway. A familiar voice in my head whispered, maybe just pay it, make it go away, bury it. Again. That was the thing about surviving something for too long, you get used to shouldering things that never should have been yours. But I wasn't that girl anymore. And this wasn't their life to ruin. I took a breath. Then I picked up the phone. The hold music was thin and metallic. Some generic jazz loop that skipped every 7 seconds. When a rep finally answered, she asked for my account number. I gave her the one from the letter. She asked to verify my address. I gave the one I own now. Then she said, our records show this loan was taken out in 2016. Are you saying you didn't authorize it? I closed my eyes. Number, I'm saying I was 17. And homeless. And someone else used my name to build a life they never earned. Oh. There was a pause on her end. Then she asked if I had proof. I opened the folder in front of me. Fingered through the pages. Found the scanned copy of the original loan with the forged signature, all loops and curls that looked nothing like my own. I do, I said. I've been collecting it for years. She transferred me. Then another rep transferred me again. I told my story 3 times that morning. Each time with fewer nerves, fewer cracks in my voice. And by the 4th call, I wasn't even trembling. I was documenting. Later that afternoon, I took a photo of the envelope, the notice, and my original fraud affidavit. Then I drove to the local licensing office. The woman at the front desk looked up from her screen. Renewal? I shook my head. Correction. The room smelled like plastic and printer paper. The kind of place that usually makes people feel small. But as I stood there with my documents with my proof, I didn't feel small. I felt clear. I handed everything over in a neat stack. Signed the affidavit again. Left the original fraud packet with them. And when I walked out, the sun was sharp and high. I didn't smile. I just breathed a little easier. Back home, I set the empty envelope on the counter. Then, without thinking, I reached for the corner of my fridge where I'd taped a sticky note years ago, the one that simply said, "You're not invisible. I see you." I added a new note beside it, in my own handwriting. "And I see me now too." They opened debt in my name. But they couldn't close the door I walked through to clear it, and the next time my name gets called, it'll be for something I actually signed. I wasn't nervous until they called my name. It was a state trade conference drywall, HVAC, electrical, plumbing, every kind of skill you could build with your hands and grit. They invited me to speak at the licensing ceremony. Said they wanted someone who knew the journey from the bottom. I didn't ask how they found me, I already knew. Word gets around when you stop being quiet. The stage was just a raised platform with a blue backdrop and folding chairs. Nothing fancy, just practical. Like the people in the room. I wore jeans, steel toes, and a black blouse that still had drywall dust in the sleeve hem. They handed me the mic. Told me I had 10 minutes. What I had was a decision. And I made it. "I'm not here to tell you I pulled myself up by my bootstraps," I said. A couple heads turned. "I'm here to tell you some of us never had boots to begin with." There was a pause. A shift in the air. "My name's Danielle Mercer. I'm a licensed electrician in West Virginia. And I wasn't supposed to be here." I told them the short version first. The version I'd used for years. Left home young, bounced around, found a program that taught me wiring, made it out. But then I took a breath and kept going. I was 15 when I got kicked out. My parents said I was difficult. What I was disposable. No one coughed. No one shuffled. It got quiet enough to hear the lights buzzing. I lived in school buildings. Church basements. Sometimes I didn't know what name I was supposed to use because mine had been used already. For credit cards, loans. Things I didn't sign. I looked up, not scanning for anyone. But I saw them. 5th row, right aisle. Becca, sitting stiff in a beige blazer. My mother beside her, hands clenched around a program booklet like it might jump. I didn't flinch. "There's a lot of talk about second chances," I said, letting the words slow. "But some of us never got a first one. We just survived long enough to build one ourselves." I paused. My license almost got denied over a debt I didn't owe. A school I never went to. But I kept the paperwork. I kept the proof. Because even when no one else believed me, I had to believe myself. A few people nodded now. Older women. A man with a limp in the front row. Someone behind the camera crew whispering "damn" under their breath. I wasn't crying. And I wasn't trying to make anyone cry. I was just telling the truth finally, in full daylight. "This work saved me," I said. "It gave me something I could hold, something I could earn. Not borrow, not steal, not fake. And this license," I held it up between my fingers, "isn't just paper, it's proof that the story they told about me wasn't the only one." I ended there. No music, no dramatic exit. Just a nod. Then I stepped down and took my seat. After the applause loud, but not showy, a woman maybe 10 years older than me walked over. Denim jacket. Safety glasses still propped on her head. "I had the same thing happen," she said. "My brother used my name to buy a boat. I didn't find out until I was applying for a loan. We didn't hug, we just nodded. Like Survivor do." Backstage, the event director handed me a folder with my speaker certificate. "You know," she said, "your mom emailed 3 times asking if she could speak after you." I raised an eyebrow. "What did you say?" She smiled. Told her this wasn't her mic. That night, I got home and pulled the folded notes from my back pocket. The ones I hadn't even read off the page. Then I taped them to the wall beside my old sticky notes. Under, "You're not invisible," And I see me now too. I wrote a third. And they see me now. They silenced me once. But this time, I spoke first. And when the time came for truth, I didn't flinch. Next time they say, "Who taught you how to stand?" I'll point to the mic. The county records office smelled like old paper and lemon cleaner. A little bell jingled when I stepped inside. The woman behind the counter didn't look up right away. She was flipping through a binder thicker than a Bible. I waited. When she finally glanced up, I held out the envelope. "Here to file," I said. She nodded, took the packet, slid her glasses down and began scanning the top page. "Electrician's license already processed?" "Yes, ma'am." "Oh, bo. Good for you," she said, almost like it surprised her. "Not many women in your field stick with it long." I didn't argue. I'd stopped needing to explain myself. She stamped the packet, signed something, then asked, "You want a certified copy for your records?" I nodded. "Two, actually." A few minutes later, she handed them to me in a plastic sleeve. My name was printed clean across the top line. Danielle L. Mercer. Owner. No co-signers. No borrowed identity. No forgeries. Just mine. On the way home, I took a different route. A long loop around the outskirts of town, the way I used to walk to school when I was 15 and trying to avoid being seen. I didn't mean to pass the house. But when I did, I didn't look away. Same white siding. Same cracked driveway. New wind chimes on the porch. I didn't feel rage. Or grief. Or the ache I used to mistake for loyalty. I felt done. Back home, the light was coming in soft through the kitchen blinds. I set the plastic sleeve on the counter and made a cup of tea. Saturday with it. Let the silence settle in the room like a reward. Then I walked to the drawer beside the fridge. Opened it carefully. Inside was the folder worn at the corners, stuffed with paper memories. The loan fraud affidavits. My mentorship certificate. The fake signature that nearly cost me my license. The original eviction notice from when I was a teenager, back when they still bothered putting it in writing. I pulled out the folder and placed the new deed on top of it. One stack. One story. All of it mine. Then I did something small. But it meant everything. I took a yellow sticky note, wrote my name, just my name, and walked to the front door. I pressed it to the inside of the glass, right above the lock. Not to claim the house. To honor the girl who used to wonder if she'd ever have a place to come home to. I stood there a moment, hand resting on the doorframe. And I realized something. They'd taken my name, once. Used it like a tool. Or a weapon. Or a ticket. But they couldn't rewrite it. Because I had already reclaimed it. Not by proving I belonged. But by building something that didn't require permission. So here I am. Not erased. Not borrowed. Not owed. Just here. With a deed in one drawer. A folder in another. And my name, spelled right, on the door I chose to stay behind. They took everything they could under my name. But they forgot one thing. I'd learned to sign it for real.